Hello everyone, I apologise massively for the abysmal setup. I know there's just like a massive amount of empty space here and just clutter over here, so apologies. And I'm going to sit very awkwardly like this, because if I sit back, yeah, so I think I'll be here. Today we are going to be talking about Arctic Monkeys. I thought it'd be quite fun today if we were to rank the albums from the worst of the bunch to the best. Now I will say this is just my opinion, everyone else is entitled to their own thing. This is probably going to be a kind of unorthodox sort of way of ranking them. I know a lot of people typically like AM the most, as well as Favourite Worst Nightmare is kind of a fan favourite. And Favourite Worst Nightmare used to be my favourite for a while. But my opinion on the albums has changed a lot over time, and I don't know, this is just how I feel. Alright, and last place, in my opinion, is AM. Firstly, I will go ahead and say AM does have some very sort of catchy, fun, very entertaining songs. I mean, Are You Mine? It was very much a classic. I am a big fan of Arabella. I really like the closer, I Wanna Be Yours. I think it's kind of cool how they use John Cooper Clarke's poetry for it. But my big issue with this one is that fucking dreaded middle section. Like anything between I Want It All to Fireside is just... I think just the thing that defines this album from a lot of the others, in my opinion, is the sound is very, very straightforward. There's not a lot going on in the mix, and that's okay. Like, that's why the album is popular. It's very much down to the base roots of what makes a good song. Huh? But I think with that comes a lot of just one-noted kind of songs, and sometimes it's a bit difficult to differentiate one song from the last. I do think the album does pick up a bit after that middle section. Why Do You Only Call Me When You're High is a really good song, and that then goes into Snap Out of It, and Knee Socks, and I Wanna Be Yours, and I'm a fan of all of those ones. I think this album's issue mostly is just how one-noted it is, and I don't know, I don't come back to this album pretty much at all. Alright, and for the album which I think most people at the moment consider to be their worst, probably because it's a bit new, is The Car. I don't think The Car is a bad album at all. Initially when I first listened to it, I was incredibly disappointed. For me, The Car has one main issue, is that the first half of his album is really good and the second half is just incredibly boring. I don't even remember Mr. Schwartz or the title track. I don't know how those songs go. And that's not to say the album is uninteresting by any means, because I think it does a lot more than AM does, to be honest. But I think a song like Hello You, where it has kind of some interesting ideas to it, just still ends up feeling like a bit of a half-formed song. That being said, the first half is genuinely really good. Mirrorball is fantastic. Sculptures, Jet Skis on the Moat. I think Body Paint may be a top 5 Arctic Monkeys song for me. But it is sort of a Tranquility based thing, because I think a lot of people really didn't like Tranquility based when it came out. And now that The Car has had some time to sort of mellow in the community a bit, I think people are coming around to it a lot more. I do think, honestly, maybe if I gave a bit more time to The Car, I will come around to it a bit more, but just at the moment, it's not quite my favourite. Alright, I'd say at this point is where I start really, really liking the albums. And the next one is Suck It and See, which is very much the underdog of the Arctic Monkeys discography. When I first got into Arctic Monkeys, I genuinely thought there was some fluke. I've never heard of it. I managed to hear about every other one, yet I'd never heard of Suck It and See. And I think Arctic Monkeys' Suck It and See is a bit of a weird one, because it never really had any massive hits. Suck It and See had, what, Brick by Brick and Don't Sit Down Because I Moved Your Chair. Two songs I'm really just not too bothered about. I mean, especially Brick by Brick. I wanna build you up, brick by brick. Besides those two songs, I actually think the album is really solid. The only other song I don't particularly like, I think, is All My Own Stunts. But then you've got She's Thunderstorms, Black Treacle, Pile Driver Waltz is a fantastic song. The closer is brilliant. I've already forgotten its name. That's Where You're Wrong. Not You. That's the name of the song. And the album does happen to have my pretty much all-time favourite Arctic Monkeys song, which is Love Is a Laser Quest, which I think is just a really sort of sweet, sort of ballady in a sense, soft rock song, and I think it's very nice. Honestly, my favourite moments on the albums are the softer, sort of more gentle songs, and my least favourites tend to be the moments where they're trying to rock out a bit, and I just think at this point that it was a bit too late for that kind of stuff in their discography. That being said, they did go on and do AM, so I'm not sure what I'm on about. My friend once told me that this album is best enjoyed with like a cold beer on the beach, and yeah, I couldn't agree more. Alright, I knew AM would probably be a little bit unorthodox, but I think this is the one that's probably going to tick most people off, and that's at number 4. Number 4, which is Favourite Worst Nightmare. Now, Favourite Worst Nightmare is a really special album for me. It used to be my favourite, but I think just looking back retrospectively, not all of it is as brilliant as I probably made it out to be. I think the standout songs for sure, Brainstorm, Fluorescent Adolescence, 505, Do Me a Favour. Those 4 immediately are brilliant. But I think my gripes with this album begin when I start comparing it to the first, because I think about the first albums, some of the first albums, sort of deeper cuts like Still Take You Home and maybe Ritz to the Rubble and that sort of thing. And you compare it with like D is for Dangerous and Balaclava, and I just don't think the Favourite Worst Nightmare ones are quite as good as the whatever people say I Am ones are. And also this album has The Bad Thing. I could make a joke right now, but I think the joke speaks for itself. The song is bad. Like, apparently the reason this song is on the album is because Alex Turner really wanted it on, but the band were like, okay, sure, but we're never gonna play it live. And I think if it gets to the point where like 3 of the 4 members of your band are like, yeah, this song fucking sucks, at that point I think it's probably a sign that you shouldn't have the song on the album. And another thing, this album has really amazing B-sides, like The Bakery and Too Much to Ask, and I don't know why those songs didn't make it. And I do completely understand why this is a lot of people's favourite. I think 505 is an amazing closer, and you know, it really sends the album off in the perfect way. I just can't quite ignore some of the less interesting moments, like Old Yellow Bricks, which has the same riff throughout the whole song. Hello, sorry, that just wasn't fucking true. The riff for me is a little bit repetitive. It goes on for longer than it needs to. It doesn't go out through the whole song. The album is pretty good, that's what I'm trying to say. Alright, and number 3, and again, unorthodox, but it's the very critically acclaimed debut album. And to be honest, this album doesn't really do anything particularly wrong. I suppose I'll say Vampires is the weakest song, at least in my opinion. I don't think it's particularly catchy, but like, holy shit, this is their debut. Like I know some bands have like fantastic debut albums, but it does amaze me that these 19-year-old boys from Sheffield just came out with genuinely what is considered a modern masterpiece these days. And I can't really disagree too much. I think it is an absolutely brilliant album. I'll just say my favourite songs. View from the Afternoon is brilliant. I really love Still Take You Home. I really love Riot Fan. When the Sun Goes Down is a fantastic song. And Mardy Bum's an incredibly sweet tune. And A Certain Romance is undoubtedly one of the band's best songs ever. But honestly, I just think the reason this is in 3rd place is I just happen to like the other albums more. I have more to say about them, truth be told. But yeah, in terms of the sort of 2000s indie rock debuts that came out, which were a lot of really fantastic ones, by the way. I think Whatever People Say I Am, Strokes Is This It, and I'm going to say Killers Hot Fuzz are the 3 just defining ones of that generation. And number 2, which when I started thinking about this list, I did not think that this album would be this high, but yeah, Tranquility Base Hotel and Casino. What a fucking crazy album. Like, holy shit. The juxtaposition between AM and Tranquility Base is something else. I think one of the criticisms that sort of came around when this album came out was the idea that Alex Turner was just kind of doing whatever he wanted, writing whatever the fuck he wanted, and the band was just along with it. I don't really think that's what's going on. I think the band just really let loose and did what they can. I mean, especially after such a major release like AM, which was a huge worldwide sensation. The band just had free range to do anything, and they would have an audience. And they just so happened to create a fucking amazing album. I mean, immediately it kicks off with Star Treatment, which in my opinion is one of the band's best openers. So many iconic lines just from that song, like, I just wanted to be one of the Strokes, love came in a bottle with a twist-off cap. I'm sorry, you might be able to tell I'm still a little bit awkward filming YouTube videos. This is something very new. I haven't done this since I was like 13.
9 people show of epicness. Where were we last?
I'm trying my best, I promise you. Then you get into 1 Point Perspective, which is another one of my all-time favorite Arctic Monkey songs. And that might seem kind of rogue, but just that bridge itself, that is phenomenal. I think it's like the best 30 seconds of any Arctic Monkey song ever. 4 out of 5 is an instant classic. The hook is just infectious and just does the best thing that any song can do, in my opinion, which is just when it takes an amazing hook in the chorus and just builds and builds and keeps going, and it's a fantastic song. And then I just truly love how weird this album gets. Like, She Looks Like Fun with this really just booming, She looks like fun. Bat Phone with just its weird instrumental, and I love the closer, the Ultra Cheese. I think it's a fantastic piano ballad, and I think Alex Turner sounds fantastic on this album. I think this sort of style of singing really suits him. And also I just want to say, how fucking cool is it that this album's concept is just a fucking hotel and casino on the moon, and they just ran with that for a whole album. And it's interesting, and it gives way to interesting lyricism and interesting ideas, and it's such a nice listen. I don't know. And the number one album for me is Humbug. Why Humbug? How shallow would it be to just say, I really like the vibe? No, there's a lot more to it than that. I think part of it is I do really like autumn. This is the stupidest fucking reasoning I've ever heard. I don't know. I'm a Libra baby. I really like Halloween, that sort of thing. And I think a lot of people would agree that Humbug is the Arctic Monkeys Halloween album. I think the sound of it all is very sort of, is a lot darker than the first two. I also like how whimsical the lyricism gets. I think in the same way that Tranquility Base was a complete shift, I think Humbug was perhaps an even riskier shift, because at least Tranquility Base came off the back of AM, and on Humbug they weren't really trying to ride the same popularity that the first two albums got. They did something just completely different. Not to mention, I firmly believe this album is no skips, non-stop, just brilliance. Even some of the less popular songs on this, like say The Fire and the Thud, I still think are really great songs. This is one of those albums I very happily listen to front to back without any skips. But if I was to choose favourite songs, I would say the opener, My Propeller, is a brilliant way to set off this album. I think Crying Lightning is a fantastic song. Cornerstone, of course. I think Dance Little Liar is such an underrated song. And the closer, The Jeweler's Hands, is undeniably just such a unique way to send this album off. It's this almost, the song almost has this psychedelic element to it, which I really, really like. Oh shit, and Secret Door. Secret Door is such a great song, an amazing song. I feel like I probably should have planned ahead a bit more as to what I have to say about this, but I think what I really just love about Humbug is that in terms of just the sound and the imagery coming together, I have such a clear idea of what this album is going for. And I don't know, if an album doesn't click with you, wait a few months until it gets to like September, October, go for a drive or a bike ride and just listen to the whole thing. And I hope that that will be what makes it click, because that's absolutely what made this album click for me. But yeah, for me, that is every Arctic Monkeys album, worst to best. And I want to say, I don't think they really have any bad albums by any means. Even AM, I think, is a perfectly good album. But I'd even go as far to say, in terms of what it stands for and what it is still a great album. And I think it's really cool how we still do have bands like Arctic Monkeys with such a varied discography. But yeah, assuming I'm not talking just into the void, please let me know how you would rank them, or your favourite, or your least favourites. And yeah, this is my first YouTube video, so like, it's gonna be a little awkward in the editing phase. But I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you around.